last time we have covered the basic introduction regarding the order of neuron, in which we have discussed first order, second order, third order, and upper motor neuron and lower motor neuron. The decomposition was important, so I'm just reviewing the basic of last lecture. Then we start the ascending track, mainly our general sensation visually. So, can you tell me what is difference between nucleus and the ganglia?
Nucleus inside the cell, ganglia on the outside.
Inside the CNS, a group of collection of cell bodies inside the CNS, we call them nucleus. Outside the CNS, we use term ganglia. Same like nerve is outside the CNS. Inside the CNS, we use term tract. So the ascending tract, for example, here is your muscle. So the sensation which go upward are ascending tract. So this is nerve, and then these tract. Inside the CNS is the tract. So they go into their cerebral cortex, their areas for sensory areas as well as motor areas for the descending tract. So our concern with the ascending tract. So you know better, this is cerebral, and here is encephalon, cerebellum, and these are brain system which have midbrain, pons, medulla, and spinal cord. So our same pathway used for the ascending and descending. Ascending go across all these pathways, and descending all come down through these brain system as well as these parts. So frontal lobe, central sulcus, parietal sulcus. So frontal lobe is concerned with the motor function. The parietal, sensory, occipital associated with your visual, and the temporal is mainly hearing and speech area. So these are sulcus, depression are sulcus, and the bulgings are gyrus. So this is sulcus, central sulcus, which separate the parietal and the frontal. Our concern with the sensory and motor, so our main concern with this central sulcus. Let's see what is happening. So this is frontal, which is associated with motor, and parietal is sensory. So temporal, occipital, and if this is central, something is in front, we use a pre. So something pre-central, mean pre-central gyrus. So this is our pre-central, and something back is called post-central. So you know better, this area is for sensory. So post-central is part of sensory or motor? Sensory, and pre-central is part of motor. So we can say the pre-central area is for the motor, primary motor, and post-central is for the sensory. So this is basic term you need to know. Primary motor area is pre-central, and post-central is sensory area. Are you good with that?
Yes.
So receptor, mainly our concern, receptor is part of our physiology mainly. But can you tell me what is the proprioception? Proprioception is what? Proprioception is sensation of your internal organ, and basically our receptor are three types. Exoceptor, which concern with the outside the body, mean pain, temperature, pressure. So all these sensations are considered received by our exoceptor, and the proprioceptor, which sense our internal sensation, and the other are the interoceptor, which is associated with your visceral. So there are receptors for everything. So our main concern with the pathway. So these are different receptors. So I'm not going to explain here. So I'm just entering into our text. So this is actually our spinal cord. So in spinal cord we actually define two things important. So one is the location of tract, where is the tract location, and other is the nucleus, the relay nucleus. So you know better, here is the gray matter, here is the white matter. So our concern is sensory pathway. So this is fasciculus cuneatus gracilis. So fasciculus gracile is associated with your lateral, the lower limb, and the cuneatus is associated with your upper limb. Our simple term, above the T6 is the upper limb, below the T6 is the lower limb. So for easier, just use this the L of gracile. This L for lower limb, and U represent what? Upper limb. So it's for trick. You can remember this. U is upper limb and L is for lower limb. So sometimes leg for other reason, which one is medial, which one is lateral, you consider this. Your hand are outside,
Lateral.
so your upper limb, your cuneatus will be on the outer aspect, and your lower limb are medially. So the gracile are medial. Easier. So, and these are your Spinocerebellar pathway. So, and the one is posterior, one is the interior. And if you follow, so these number 3 is what is spino-olivary pathway. So and this is 4 is your lateral spinothalamic, and the 5th is your interior spinothalamic tract. So cuneo-cerebellar tract. So I'm not going to discuss the motor pathways. So and for nucleus, the relay nucleus are very important. So just one minute. So actually, when your sensation are entered by the dorsal pathway, and the motor are go out by the ventral. So the tract which are enter here, so there is relays, or in simple term we use the resting room. So these are actually, these nucleus are nothing but the resting room. So for example, your the tract which enter here, they come here and then go to their tract. So because nucleus are present in the gray matter, and your tract are moving in the white column, or the white matter. In the gray matter is the nucleus. So these are actually, when I say spinothalamic, spinocerebellar, all the tract also they move in the white matter, but first they enter into their relay center. So this lesser tract I am explaining later, but is actually associated with your spinothalamic tract. It's when your the spinothalamic tract, which is associated with P and T, just remember P associated with pain and T is temperature. So when these tract enter here, for example, enter at the level of T6, so they do not cross the midline at T6 level. They rest here for 1 or 2 segment, mean they cross at the level of 1 or 2 above segment. So if T6, they have to cross at the level of T8. So their relay actually form these tract, lesser tract. 1 or 2 segment for spinothalamic, they form the lesser tract. So just remember, you need to focus right here. So now this is cortex, I'm showing thalamus and the medulla, spinal cord. Although we have discussed this picture last time. So here is your internal capsule. So what is the center in the cortex for the sensory pathway? Post-central or pre-central?
Sensory pathway, post-central.
Post-central. So it's easier. So this is right and left division. No. How many other 3 we have discussed last lecture? There are 3 other neurons. First, second, and third. First is easier. It's mostly outside. So dorsal root ganglia. And the third is common, which is what is
Thalamus.
posterior lateral nucleus, which is present in the thalamus. So let me see. So this is your second neuron, the second nucleus. So important thing, last lecture mentioned, we have to define the location of the second. If we are able to define the location of second, we can define their decussation level. If it is present in the spinal cord, so their decussation should be at the level of spinal cord. If this second is present in the medulla, so their decussation should be at the level of medulla. So the first is easier outside, third is easier ventral common. And if we are able to define this the second nucleus, we can define the decussation level. So because it is present here and the other is here, so this decussate at the level of spinal cord and the other decussate at the level of medulla. So and then they go to the this is decussation, and the one is spinal cord level, other is at the level of your so thalamus, I've discussed last time. So this is which pathway? Dorsal column. Actually, this show the dorsal column or medial lemniscus. So if you review the lesion, it's easier now. If lesion is at this level, so our sensation loss will be contralateral or the ipsilateral. You know, if this is the lesion at this level means thalamus, internal capsule, or the cortex level. So everything is present on the contralateral. So lesion should be always on the contralateral. So if at this level, so it will be contralateral because above the decussation, and the below the decussation because for this pathway is contralateral. For this pathway will be ipsilateral because it has decussated at this level. So above the decussation contralateral, below the decussation ipsilateral, and for first always the ipsilateral because it is present on its own side. So first order lesion is always on the ipsilateral, and the so we'll stop it here because so up till now which we have discussed is part of our last lecture in which we have covered these parts. So actually we are going to discuss the actual tract which are general sensation. You know better our posterior, the column is mainly associated, posterior horn is associated with the sensory pathway. So this example which I have shown here, it's an example of your dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway. This example of dorsal. So you can understand its nucleus is present right here. So what are in the dorsal column? What is present? Fasciculus gracile and fasciculus cuneatus. These two pathways are moving on the same pathway. So same like their so same nucleus name will be if the pathway for the gracile is the nucleus gracilis, which is present in medulla spinal cord. Medulla. So for the cuneatus pathway will be present in the medulla. So this is for above the T6. It is for gracile L. Just remember L is lower limb. U represent what? Upper limb. So easier way. So this is for upper limb. This is for lower limb. And which one is the outer? Because our upper limb is on lateral. So the pathways are on the lateral aspect. So then this function is discriminative touch. There are fine touch, discriminative touch, and crude touch. Let's see what is the discriminative touch means if I point, I'm pointing 2 points. So I can sense there are this hand is touching at 2 different points. So this is discrimination. I can identify these are 2 different points. So this discrimination distance depend on the areas. So if it is in this distal area, so it's a difference. If a 2 point difference is 5 millimeter, I can differentiate these are 2 points. If same thing is on the back, where difference is smaller because it's more sensitive as compared to back, so difference become 20 millimeter. So if the 2 point difference is 20 millimeter, I can say these are 2. If it's in the range of 20, I cannot define these are 2. I say that person touching me only 1 point. Are you clear? Yes. So discriminative touch and other is fine touch, smooth touch, and this is fine touch. And crude touch mean uncomfortable. Crude touch. This sensation. This is crude touch. And for each touch have different pathway. This pathway is associated with your discriminative. Then come to vibration. Vibration is what? It's actually a repetition of pressure. Same pressure if repeated rhythmically, we call them the vibration. It's nothing. It's simply vibration. Then if proprioception is sensation of your internal body organs. One is conscious, one is unconscious. Conscious means if I I close my eyes, I can define my thumb is down, my thumb is up. So this pathway is working. Some other is unconsciously. If I am walking, my muscle are extending or flexing automatically. I'm not sensing how it's contracted or relaxed. So unconsciously these signals are going. I'm not trying to define. Have you think about when you are walking? Now my muscle is contracted. Now I have to relax. No, it's automatic. It's unconscious behavior. Got it? Got it? So this is unconscious and conscious. Conscious is with this pathway. Unconscious is associated with your cerebellum. Are you clear with this?
Yes.
So the other term you need to know, the fasciculus and lemniscus. These terms, when we discuss the brain system, you may be confused. What does mean the lemniscus? Actually, when this is, for example, one fiber is going. It's only one fiber? No, of course, the different area. So all the spinal cord are sending their ascending pathways. So these are become a bundle or group. Are you clear? So these bundle move like this. So this bundle of this pathway is nothing is the fasciculus. So when they move like a bundle, so we call them fascicular. So for the lower limb, fasciculus gracilis, and for the upper limb is spinator. Are you clear? So coming at this point, nucleus gracile. If a pathway is gracile, go to the gracile. Gracilis. If it's cuneatus, go to the cuneatus. Easier. Then this decussation. Actually, when these fiber move like this, so they form like arc or not, like arc shapes. So we call them internal arcuate fiber. So this group here is the fasciculus in the spinal cord. When they are crossing, they form internal arcuate fibers. Are you clear with this?
Yes.
So now it's time to ascend. Now it's time to ascend. So they ascend like in fasciculus, they ascend like this, but like this. So when in this pathway, they become somewhat circular. These ascending pathway. So although this is bundle, but they are come in like this position. So structure is some different. So we name them lemniscus. Everything is bundle of nerve. So arrangement is different. When they move like this, we call them fascicular. They form arc like we call them internal arcuate. They move like a lemniscus or a circular they we call them lemniscus. Are you clear with this?
Yes, sir.
So this is actually medial lemniscus because it's present amid. There is something later and that is part of our next lecture. But medial, it's medial. Are you clear with this?
Yes, sir.
So function is the describe the touch, vibration, proprioception, and the heterogeneous image. You try to identify the structure of it's a circular, round, rough, or easy. So these are actually the different sensation. So now come to this supinothalamic. What is function of supinothalamic?
Pain and temperature.
Pain and temperature. Actually, which you are discussing, it is actually two pathways in the
Internal.
Anterior and the lateral.
Lateral.
So lateral is actually take this sensation of pain and touch, and your interior take the light touch and the pressure. Are you clear? And this spinal lemniscus. Since if you clear with terms lemniscus, you can say what is lemniscus.
Yes.
So spinal lemniscus. So these are actually interior and lateral form the spinothalamic these tract. When they move here, interior and lateral, after cross and the medulla, they become union. So they move in the same pathway like this. These are. So they form a spinal lemniscus. It's a third fiber also move with that. Their name is the spinotactal. So spinotactal, interior spinothalamic, lateral spinothalamic. These three fibers actually forming your spinal lemniscus. Are you clear with this? So function is clear. Pain, temperature is for lateral, light touch. You can differentiate light touch, crude touch, discriminator, and pressure. Can you move forward?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So now come to the spinocerebellar. So we have discussed the conscious pathway. Now come to the unconscious. This is actually your associated with your unconscious pathway. I mean unconscious proprioception is going to this. So let's see. So their function is actually coordination. For example, my motor signal is coming from my brain. So if I want to hear, so although the muscle has signal to extend or flex, so but the accurate movement is defined by this cerebellum. So if I touch like this, if my cerebellum is working, if it's a problem in my cerebellum, my hand can overshoot here or undershoot here. This is function of cerebrum coordination. So for example, if there is test for check the cerebellum, so point here. So if you check the function of cerebellum, touch your nose and touch this finger, change the position. If I can do this, my cerebellum is working. Otherwise, there may be a tremor. I can when I reaches the finger or reaches the nose, so are you changing the position? So you can define the cerebrum function. Are you good with that? So ataxia is actually loss of your this coordination. So unconscious the proprioception, which will not try to unconsciously going through our body. So there are actually, we discussed the three pathways. One is the dorsal, one is the ventral. So these dorsal and ventral are associated with your cerebellum, lower limb, lower limb, muscle, spindle and tendon organ is part of physiology. So let's follow this dorsal spinal cerebellar tract. What you are going? This is our first neuron, first order,
Yes.
and this is the nucleus. That is nucleus of clock, Ca2L2. So it is reaches that one. This is one easier. Now it's moving, ascending and going to their cerebellum. So this is entering through an inferior cerebral peduncle. Just remember, this is entering by the inferior cerebral peduncle. So the peduncles are what? These are actually because cerebellum is present on the back. So your brain stem is attached with this cerebellum by superior cerebral peduncle, middle and inferior. Superior for the midbrain. Midbrain is associated with cerebellum, superior peduncle. Pons is by middle or inferior, middle, and medulla with inferior peduncle. So these are actually connection formed by the transverse fiber. So they enter through the inferior cerebral peduncle. So now look at the ventral. Most of friend I have seen they are confused with the ventral pathway. It's a little bit complicated. Let's see. Follow the pathway. This is first. Cross the midline or not? So it's cross the midline.
Second.
Now second is going upward and entering into cerebellum.
Third.
So no, it's here is only two.
Okay.
Another concept is that because they are not going to cortex, so there are only two use. Clear this. So this is your second is going. So they enter into the cerebellum by the superior peduncles. This is by the inferior. This is by the superior. As they enter, they come back to their ipsilateral side. Little confusing. So some say they have gone to the contralateral side, but entering here, but come back by the inferior cerebral peduncle back to their own side, ipsilateral side. So we can say if there is injury in the cerebellum, everything is ipsilateral. Because one thing which has ventral, which has gone to the other side, they also come back here. So in the lesion of cerebellum, our finding will be ipsilateral. Actually, step 1 exam is nothing. They simply ask these such confusion. Ipsilateral, contralateral. These are their questions. So you can define it. So our finding will be ipsilateral. So I have discussed the lower limb. Our remaining one is the upper limb. We need another pathway. That is the cuneo-cerebellar pathway. What is cuneo-cerebellar pathway? Right. So they enter here, and the name of this is the accessory cuneate nucleus, which you cannot find in the spinal cord. It's present at the medulla level. So they enter here and by the inferior peduncle into their ipsilateral cerebellum. Are you good with that?
Yes.
So you can easily define, because CA to L2 is level of below mean our thoracic is considered, our lumbar region is considered, but the above the C, what is? It's cuneo-cerebellar upper limb. Are you good with that?
Yes.
Can we move forward?
Yes.
So if you have any confusion, you can ask me. So one more time, lower limb, one is the dorsal, easier ascent and by the inferior peduncle into their ipsilateral cerebellum. The ventral go to the contralateral side, enter into the contralateral cerebellum by the superior peduncle, come back by the inferior cerebral peduncle, enter back by the inferior cerebellum into their corresponding ipsilateral cerebellum. So for the cuneo, there is associated cuneate nucleus at the closed medulla level. Come here, enter by the inferior cerebral peduncle and ipsilateral. So if there is a lesion in the cerebellum, finding will be always on the ipsilateral. Thank you very much. The lesion of this will result in hypotonia, muscle and adoption. So one pathway is which is a vestibular pathway, which is not as such important for your exam, but our first order is here in the vestibular, because for our balance we need three things: proprioception, vision, and the vestibular. At a time we have two working. If two is working, I can balance my body. So like this, if I can close my eyes, because other two, my vestibular is working, my dorsal column is working, so I can balance. If my dorsal column is injured, so when I close, I have only one single path, which is this vestibular. So I cannot balance my body. So at a time we have two of them. If someone cannot hear, hair loss is different. Hearing is because internal ear has two functions. One is hearing, other is the balance. Cochlear is associated with the hearing, and the vestibular is associated with the balance. So vestibular is a different thing. So this is actually vestibular nerve first order, and the second order, the vestibular nucleus in the medulla is present here. Can you see here? Vestibular. So enter into the vestibular nucleus and the lower part of pons. Just it is upper part of medulla and the lower part of junction at the junction point near. So this is actually second order. So then by the inferior peduncle, same side, enter into the same side of their cerebellum. So this is actually function is the convey information from internal ear to the cerebellum. For cerebellum, do what? Coordination, maintain. So I think so. You can see this decussation. So one is here, one is here. So they are crossing like that. So injury, you can define the injury ipsilateral contralateral pathway. So no, this is actually your brainstem. You can now identify this picture. I am not go to this pathway because we have not discussed. I have discussed this pathway. So fasciculus, gracilis fibers are coming. So this is the nucleus, gracile. This is the cuneatus. Cuneatus is lateral, and the gracile is medial. So these are actually one is here, and other is two are here. So you can see these gracile are coming here. So gracile into gracile nucleus, fasciculus, and into this, and they are forming what? Internal arcuate. You can define here, and they are decussating at this level. Of this side, they are that side. Can you define? So this is actually your decussation of medial lemniscus. And if you look at your interior and lateral spinothalamic, they are right here. So one is here, and the lateral spinothalamic is moving right here, and your posterior spinocerebellar, interior spinocerebellar pathway, which we have discussed the ascending. Not go to other because we have not discussed those. You can, because when I discuss the brain system, if you have covered some part, it's easier. So just understand these pathways which we have covered. Now come forward. So what we have discussed. So before going to this, just come back. So pain and temperature have single pathway, that is the spinothalamic pathway, lateral spinothalamic. For touch, there is two way. If it's simple or light, or you can say crude touch, they go to the interior spinothalamic. If it's a discriminative touch, go to the dorsal column. For conscious perception, dorsal column. For unconscious, what? Spinocerebellar. Cerebral pathway.
Yes.
Dorsal and ventral cerebral. So another concept is that all the sensations which are going to our postcentral gears, so they are sensed there. Only your pain and temperature, they can be sensed under in the thalamus. Then go to signal also go to our cortex, but they can be defined. The pain and temperature at the level of thalamus, ventral-posterior level. So other is your first order is always present. Dorsal root ganglia is outside the CNS. Only one is the mesenocephalic nucleus of trigeminal part, which is not of our today's lecture, is actually your the facial part. So that is present inside there. Everything is outside. Some there is exception. So you go. So pain and fever are lateral. Another condition is some type you have seen if the pain is uncontrolled. So you do a process or a dissection. There is the cordotomy. To cut that nerve, the pathway for which is taken for that area, in order to relieve the pain. So actually your pain fiber are lateral, because pain and temperature, they have different fiber, also the spinothalamic, but the pain is the lateral and the temperature is the medial. So they move as they reaches in the cervical region, the pain fiber become very superficial. So because they are lateral aspects, so when they reach in cervical, they superficially mean they come at the level of your skin. So you can cut easily the pain fiber. Below this, because they are inside. So when the superficial mean near to the skin, so we can cut the pain fiber. So we can. This is a process they actually cordotomy.
Repeat this one.
Because the spinothalamic has lateral has two functions: pain and temperature. Pain and temperature. So these fibers are moving like that. So one should be the medial, one should be the lateral. Pain is lateral. So they are inside the spinal cord. So when they reach the cervical level, your pain fiber come almost near to your skin.
On the cervical level.
In the cervical region. So we can cut the pain fiber to relieve our pain if it's uncontrolled. So that is process cordotomy.
Alright.
Are you good with this?
Yes, sir.
So the slide which is coming in front of you, it is actually summary of your all the ascending tract. So it's covered the whole concept which I have covered in a single picture. So we can say it's worth of this single slide is the $1 billion. So this is cortex is here. So ventral-posterior lateral nucleus, and here is the part of thalamus. So and this is your brainstem part, 1, 2, 3, and on the side is what? Cerebellum. So one is midbrain, pons, medulla, cerebellum. Good with it. So these are actually your peduncles showing this inferior, middle, and superior. So these are superior, middle, and inferior peduncle. This is the midbrain, superior, pons at this level with the middle, and the inferior is with the medulla, cerebellum. So you can see the connection. Are you good with it?
Yes, sir.
Now look at here is what? Spinal cord below the medulla. So this is actually a left hand light. So now see these are actually level of different level throughout the body. So these are actually showing. So this is actually the sensation which from cervical level, and then the thoracic. Cervical are 8 nerves, and the thoracic are 12, and then the lumbar 5, and the sacral are also 5, and the one is the coccygeal nerve. So these are actually color which we are using to define the each pathway. So follow the each one. What is it? So one is this pathway. Can you see coming right here?
Yes, sir.
So by the inferior peduncle enter into the cerebellum. This is your cuneo-cerebellar. By the inferior peduncle. Can you see here?
Yes.
Interact by the. So this is your cuneo-cerebellar pathway. So other now look at this pathway. So this is your dorsal or
Spinocerebellar.
ventral. This is also cerebral pathway. Dorsal or ventral? Dorsal.
Dorsal.
Because it's not crossing.
Yes.
So this is your
Spinocerebellar.
spinodorsal posterior or dorsal, and the other. Can you see here? So it's going, entering by the superior peduncle, coming back to the cerebellum by the these middles using follow the, because this each point is actually your book line. So they are coming here, crossing the at the level of subinguinal, move ascending on the contralateral side into by the superior peduncle, go into the nucleus which is present in the cerebellum. So come back through the middle. Can you see by using middle cerebellum enter into the their ipsilateral cerebellum. So while these are using the inferior peduncle. So this is your the function of the cuneo is the muscle joint sense in the upper limb. You know better. These are for the lower limb. So unconscious proprioception for the lower limb, both are easier. So this is another pathway. Now let's look at. Can you define me which pathway is here, which is crossing at the level of medulla?
Contralateral.
It's crossing. What is the name of this track which is crossing at the medulla level? We have discussed. Which was crossing first dorsal column, medial lemniscus pathway, fasciculus cuneatus or gracilis, which is crossing at the level of medulla. So this is your dorsal column cuneatus, which is at the level of T6 or above the T6, and other. Let's see. So this is below the T6 is the your gracilis, dorsal gracilis column gracilis. So their function is what? To the discrimination, vibration, proprioception, both. One is for the below, one is for the above the T6. So, and this is another pathway, spinothalamic. So important thing is that they are forming. This is actually forming your lesser tracts, because coming right here, but they are not crossing at this point. They are using one or two above segment using, then they cross. So this part is actually your lesser tract. So one is your spinothalamic lateral, one is your spinothalamic interior. Interior is for the literally for the pain and temperature, and other is for the fine
Touch.
the light touch and pressure. So this is here. So they are crossing in the midbrain pons, ventral pons, and reaching into the cortex in the postcentral. You know better for the sensory pathway. So now, so here is something which is called the inferior olivary nucleus. So it is present in the in this level, at the medulla level. So here is actually the pathway which take the signal from your spinal and reaches at this level. What will name use? Spino-olivary. Coming from spinal cord, reaching at this level. Follow the green line. Can you follow?
Yes.
So they are coming at the inferior olivary nucleus. They are coming here, crossing the at the level of subinguinal, move ascending on the contralateral side, enter into their ipsilateral cerebellum by the inferior peduncle. Can you see here?
Yes.
So this tract name is the spino-olivary, and their function is the cuneatus and cutaneous means skin related and proprioception organ. So the spino-olivary pathway. Are you good?
Yes.
Super. So the other is your viscera. So this is now follow this pathway. So this is actually become part of this which pathway? Can you see above here? No, it's become part of this spinothalamic. So this tract, which is spinothalamic. So this the visceral send their signal by using this tract. So also signal come here, ascend, and then become part of
Lateral spinothalamic.
lateral spine. So these are actually your visceral afferent, which take the sensation of pain, stretch, and viscera. So these pain are actually created by the stretch, not by the pain. So in the viscera you cannot feel those pain. So these are actually created by the stretch. So and follow the other one. So here is another something, that is the superior collicula. So actually there are colliculus, pair of colliculus. One is here, one is here, one is here, one is here. So 4 collicula. So 2 are the superior, 2 are the inferior. So superior, they are actually present in the midbrain tectum part. Can you know what does mean by tectum? It is actually
Part of.
the midbrain posterior part, because one is the interior, one is the posterior. We use for the midbrain posterior part tectum. For the interior part we use the term tegmentum. And the third part we use is the basilar part, which is actually sitting on our skull. So just remember the tectum. Tectum is what? Posterior part of midbrain. So the pathway which come from the spinal and reaching this tectum, we call them the spinotectum. So these, because 2 are the superior, 2 are the inferior. The superior 2 are for your vision. The inferior 2 are for the hearing, auditory pathway. So sometimes students confuse superior is for the visual or inferior is for the visual. If you follow this ear, so ear is on the inferior. So just remember it is the inferior colliculus is for the auditory and the vision is superior. So superior colliculus. So this is actually taking sensation from your visual pathways, spino-visual reflexes. So can you follow this pathway? So this color, follow this pathway. So this is actually your spino-visual pathway. So this is spinotectal, sorry, because going to the tectum of your midbrain. So and the last one which we are going to say, this black one. Can you follow?
Yes.
So they are actually going to into reticular. These, can you see these grass, and these are actually net-like structure like this. We call them reticular. Can you see these reticular in the medulla, in the pons, in the midbrain? So spino-reticular. Can you name this pathway? Spino-reticular, because it's going to the reticular. So this is your spino-reticular. So influence the level of your consciousness. It's actually controlling the conscious level. So this is actually the pathway. Now you can define this is actually the lesion. So now if this is lesion at this level, what you can lose?
Muscle joints and
That is the other function. Just remember, contralateral or ipsilateral, first define. The losses will be, because it's at above the medulla. Losses will be contralateral. So all these sensations are going to last contralaterally. Sometimes students confused, because when they in the scenario they do not find the love contralateral. For the word, they do not find the word contralateral. It's simple. If something saying that its left side is gone, it's one side is contralateral. If saying right and left means something ipsilateral, something contralateral. So when use one side or word contralateral, it's the contralateral above the medulla. So you do not do the MRI of the spinal cord. So all these sensations are going to last. Now look at here. If lesion at this level, for example here, so these are going to last ipsilaterally.
So that is below the building.
Because it's below these pathways. What is this? This is cuneo-cerebellar for upper limb, and these are the gracile and the cuneatus dorsal column, and this is your spinocerebellar, the dorsal Spinocerebellar, because here is your ventral, and your black one, which is your spinocerebellar. So all these fibers are going to gone here. So their sensation are gone. So these are ipsilateral. All other thing will be contralateral. Why? Because the pathway, because we have two sided. I have mentioned one. The other which are coming from this side. So like this, the for other side will be present or not?
Yes, present.
So all these sensations which mentioned here. So these for the contralateral losses, because they are also moving here for of this side, because they are left and right. So can you follow? These are the ipsilateral losses. These are contralateral for, because if the losses are this side. So now another, at this level something has crossed something wrong. So which is crossed will be, because if it is on the other side no losses. If it's the on this side we can define it ipsilateral. So other is the C. So if you see here, these losses, these will be the contralateral losses,
Yes.
and ipsilateral for that side ipsilateral, because these fibers are moving right here for this side. You can follow. So these are actually mentioned all the same. At the A level you have found it, everything the contralateral. For the B, something contralateral, something ipsilateral. Ipsilateral for that side and the contralateral for this side. So because contralateral of this side are moving. So and at C level, something contralateral, something ipsilateral, because the losses are mixed. But at this level, D level, so there are also something contralateral, something ipsilateral, which have crossed, and they because your cuneatus is above the T6. Cuneatus is above the T6, so there is no loss for the upper limb. If you injury at this level, below the T6, you can understand this because they are not present here. So this is actually end of our ascending tract. Thank you very much. So.
Thank you.